Castle Crashers is a pretty long game, consisting of 49 selectable levels, 20 unique boss fights, and just under 30 enemy types. So it's no surprise that the average Castle Crashers playthrough takes players between 3 and 5 hours. But what if I told you that I beat Castle Crashers in 45 minutes? Here's how I did it. Right, so before starting anything, it's very important that I reset my save data. For my starting character, I was pretty limited considering I just deleted everything, leaving me with either the Green Knight, Blue Knight, Orange Knight, or Red Knight. Note that for this speedrun category, DLC characters are not allowed. And well, Green Knight's first to be removed since, you know, backflip. Blue Knight is next to go as his starting weapon only gives +1 magic, which isn't going to be useful for this speedrun. That leaves us with the Orange and Red Knight, who are honestly both great picks, since the Orange Knight starting weapon gives us +1 strength, whilst the Red Knight's gives us a 1% crit chance. Meaning our decision comes down to a guarantee of +1 damage on every attack, or a gamble of 1% for 4 times damage. And being the responsible person that I am, I of course chose the weapon that guarantees more damage, and not gamble away my choices of a successful run for 1%. So after picking Red Knight, the timer officially starts beginning this speedrun. And upon loading into the game's first cutscene, I immediately exit to the map in order to skip it, loading into the game's second cutscene where I can then control my character. So my first course of action is clearing the waves of barbarians as fast as I can. And I actually got pretty lucky since all 3 barbarians were caught in my juggle, unlike the second wave of barbarians who were a little more awkward. But after witnessing the princess's kidnap, I ran to the edge of this load zone in order to spawn both wave of enemies, getting them all in a big juggle and clearing home castle. And before leaving Castle Keep, I made sure to buy a healing potion before progressing, just in case I needed it during this run. Upon leaving Castle Keep, the game forced me back to the map, where I immediately spent all of my skill points on strength. Strength is a stat I will want to focus on, since the higher the strength, the more melee damage I do. For the other stats, magic isn't really useful unless it's maxed out, defense is pointless if I and agility only improves my bow damage and movement speed, which are both useless since I have to stop for waves of enemies and the bow only hits 1 enemy at a time. So after improving my strength stat, I loaded into Barbarian War and got back to juggling. Not long into this level, I was able to defeat my first thief who dropped me the bow and arrow. This item will become essential later on in the run, so it was important for me to pick it up now. And after defeating some more barbarians, I eventually made it to the War Machine, which is the first boss of the run. Now before triggering this cutscene, I ran and jumped whilst shooting my bow. This was to push me a little closer to the War Machine as shooting the bow carried my momentum, allowing me to start damaging the War Machine immediately after the cutscene. I then simply kept hitting the War Machine until it was defeated, ambushed some sleeping barbarians, and moved into the final section of this level indicated by a large wooden door. Normally, you would defeat these final 2 enemies and slowly break down this door, but with some careful positioning, I was able to fight the barbarians whilst simultaneously destroying the door, saving me a little more time. And after exiting to the map and leveling up my strength, I loaded into the barbarian boss fight where I completely threw. Yeah, so in an ideal run, I should be able to defeat the barbarian boss without him doing a single attack. By positioning myself in front of the boss, I'm able to freely move left and right whilst doing damage, resulting in the big guy getting confused and just forgetting to attack. But hey, it's better to make mistakes now than our next level, which is the pirate ship. No, you heard right, the pirate ship. So during the Princess Kiss cutscene, you're not able to move your character since you're locked into the animation. But for whatever reason, the game thinks you're back on the map. So as I was kissing the princess, I held down my right input key, essentially telling the game that I want to move to the dock. However, this trick is unfortunately limited to 1 input, meaning we'll exit to the map being on the dock, unless... So what you just witnessed was CUS, which stands for Character Unlock Skip. a major glitch which allows us to skip literally half of the game. And the way this works is actually pretty simple. So just like the Princess Kiss, the game once again thinks we're on the map, and by pressing my right input, I'm telling the game to move me onto the pirate ship, which just so happens to bypass the lock on this level, meaning in just under 6 minutes, I'm already halfway through the game. That's why it was essential that I reset my save data after every run, as this glitch would not be possible if I'd already unlocked the Grey Knight. But moving onto the pirate ship, and here is where I have to manage my XP gains. Later on in this run, I will have to perform the character unlock skip again, but this skip won't work if I level up at any point during the level, since the level up screen takes priority over the character unlock screen, and this is best done on the pirate ship. So the first wave of enemies consists of 3 ninjas, who I want to get into the corner. I then spam my double jump spin attack since this melee does barely any damage. The goal here is to farm XP so I can time my level up later on in the run, as if I didn't do this now, I would end up leveling up on the alien ship. And the reason why Pirate Ship is the best level to do this is because for some reason, the ninjas are the only waves of enemies to spawn on a timer. Normally, enemy waves are triggered upon defeating every enemy in the previous wave, or by walking into the enemy's summon zone. But for the pirate ship, the second wave of ninjas spawn after a certain amount of time, meaning we can farm the first wave of ninjas without wasting any time on our speedrun. But moving on to the desert now, and if you've played through this level before, then you'll know just how unforgiving it can be. Oh, and I'm also level 5, so that's just great. The main issue with the desert is, well, everything. But more specifically, the scarabs can be unpredictable at times and they're really slow to kill, and the royal guards do a lot of damage. But with some solid heavy juggles and scarab management, I was able to scathe by the desert thanks to this clutch level up which refilled my health bar. The final part of the desert consists of 2 UFO boss fights, who are not difficult but do waste a lot of time, especially if you let them spawn a bunch of aliens. But after defeating the boss fights, the desert level ends with us being abducted by a larger UFO, where you can actually save some time if you perfectly time a jump right as you get abducted. Look, I tried my best, I swear. Immediately after entering the alien ship, I exited to the map and spent all of my skill points on strength. This was an important step, as by not doing this, I would have ruined my character unlock skip at the end of the level. But after freeing myself from containment using the bow I acquired earlier, I defeated all of the aliens as fast as I could and got a pretty solid escape sequence. I then did the second cuz of the run, putting me straight onto Medusa's lair. Now, I wasn't able to enter since you need the horn to do so. So I exited the level and entered the marsh. Now the only part of marsh I was worried about were the beefy skeletons, but after juggling the smaller skeletons first, I was able to get a clutch level up, placing me at level 8. This unlocked me the melee combo I needed in order to medium juggle as well as juggle the beefies in the air. I then used my newly acquired medium juggle to defeat all the snakies, ran behind these houses to not spawn the optional enemies, before swiftly defeating the Troll Mother. This brought me to the con boss where I was now at the mercy of RNG. So for this fight, there's actually a really fun glitch you can do which makes this very long boss fight into a pretty short one. All you have to do is get the con boss to appear at the very bottom of the screen, whilst roughly being in line with the start of this mound. Then simply go to the bottom of the screen yourself and do your dive attack in any direction. And if you did it correctly, this will happen. Oh, yeah, so for whatever reason, this setup causes the game to glitch out and allows you to hit the con boss a ridiculous amount of times. But back to the run, and this con boss fight was actually really lucky, since every time the con boss goes underground, there's a chance he'll do a different attack which sees him emerge away from your position. And during this run, it only happened once, unlike some other runs I did. Just take your time, con boss. Take your time. We ain't speedrunning or anything. Are you... con boss! Con boss! We're speedrunning. I'm getting trolled. I'm getting trolled by the con boss. God! No! No! Oh, no! 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 Anyway, after defeating the con boss, I made sure to position my character close to the barn in order to reduce the distance the civilian had to run. And after acquiring the horn, I went and paid Glorp a visit as I needed to grab as many bombs and healing potions as I could. But I unfortunately didn't have enough for the final bomb. I'm sure this will have no consequences later on in the run. And after saying goodbye to Glorp, I entered the flooded temple where I now just had to play as fast as I can. So I defeated all of the enemies and made it to the Medusa boss fight, where there's a small trick I can do to reduce my time. By standing to the right of Medusa and activating Tech, I am able to safely hit her while she constantly backs away. Tech is a glitch which can be activated by getting knocked down, recovery jumping back up, and then juggling an enemy without touching the floor. And whilst in Tech, you can not get knocked down and most enemies tend to ignore you, only ending when you land on the floor. But thanks to Medusa's interesting hitbox, I was not able to kill her as fast as I would have liked. Next was Full Moon, where I beefy manipulated the stove faces in order for a safe fast kill before ladder stratting the rest of the enemies. Snow World had no interesting tricks, so I simply defeated the Eskimos as fast as I could. This left me with the Frost King, who just so happens to be the most annoying and longest boss fight in the whole game. Yeah, so the Frost King boss fight is possibly the worst fight for any speedrun. His arena is made entirely of ice, so getting around is a nightmare. The boss constantly teleports around the arena, and his attacks also freeze. Luckily, however, we can remove one of these obstacles, since at the end of Snow World, you can find the Yeti animal orb chilling behind some houses. Yeti will give the player +2 strength, which is a nice boost to my damage, but his main ability actually prevents me from getting frozen, making the Frost King a tiny bit more bearable. But for the actual fight, I want to constantly be sprinting on the ice, so that when the Frost King appears, I can immediately dash into him for some nice damage. It also helps to understand how this fight works. You see, the Frost King is split into 3 phases. The first phase sees the Frost King cycle between 2 attacks and a taunting laugh. The attack he chooses is random, but it will always appear on the left side of the screen, whereas his laugh will always be on the right side of the screen. So by using this knowledge, I could at least predict where he was gonna be, massively increasing the accuracy of my attacks. For his second phase, the Frost King will gain a new attack, which sees him summon icicles from the roof. But once again, this attack will always happen on the right side of the screen, meaning I can at least predict the Frost King's teleports. The third and final phase sees the Frost King ditch all of his attacks in favour of fast aggressive icicles. Oh, he's dead. Guess it doesn't really matter anyway. After making it to the Wizard Castle interior, I only had 10 minutes left to beat the Painter boss, Undead Cyclops, the Necromancer, and all 6 phases of the Evil Wizard. So starting with the Painter boss, and here is where I needed my healing potions. Not because this boss is hard or anything, no, it's actually due to the fastest strat being to let the paintings blow up on me. By doing this, the Painter will come back down to summon more paintings. Rinse and repeat till phase 2, and that's 1 boss down, 3 to go. For the Undead Cyclops, I optimally want to enter Tech in order to get a bunch of free damage. But I of course let Thrower shine, costing me a healing potion. Now I was able to slightly recover by staying in front of the boss whilst I meleeed him, but overall, this fight was just terrible. Next was the Necromancer, who can easily end my run right here. That's because before I fight the Necromancer, I have to go through 2 waves of extremely difficult buffed enemies. But beginning on the first wave, and this one's not too bad as long as you can juggle. So I immediately light juggled all of the enemies I could, defeating them swiftly and moving on to the medium juggle Fire Demon, finally finishing with the Conehead and my heavy juggle. For phase 2, I now had to deal with 3 beefies who can grab me out of any juggle. So after getting knocked out of my light juggle, I was actually able to activate Tech. meaning as long as I don't touch the floor, none of the enemies can harm me. And well, it was basically GG at that point. So after defeating all of the enemies, I went and caught the Necromancer in a juggle before he even touched the ground. And by doing this, the Necromancer for some reason becomes a light juggle, meaning it was also GG for him. So this was it. 3 minutes left to beat all 6 phases of the evil wizard. I wasted no time in the arena, instantly jumping up to damage the crystals before getting into a glitch spot where the crystals couldn't damage me. This allowed me to bunch the 4 crystals together for a fast, easy kill. For the second phase, I used the 8 bombs I had bought earlier in the run to burst down the evil wizard's health. But since I was a bomb short, the second phase unfortunately dragged out longer than I had hoped. The third phase was easy as ever, as all I had to do was melee him down. This was also the case for the 4th and 5th phase, which massively helped to recover my lost time during the second, meaning all that was left was the 6th and final phase. And with 1 minute remaining, I burst down the evil wizard's health, destroyed his castle, and landed on the crystal, officially ending this speedrun. So there you have it, Castle Crashers beaten in 45 minutes. It's just crazy to think that if I hadn't caught the Necromancer in a juggle, or made one tiny mistake anywhere else in the run, then there was a good chance that I wouldn't have made this sub 45. But anyway guys, if you want to get yourself some gamer subs or cheeky soap, then use code RECKA for 10% off. The links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.